60 Minutes with Angela starts right now.
The government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria created the National Social Investment Program in 2015, but launched it in 2016 with a steering committee chaired by its Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. The question is, was this program well thought out, or is it, as many critics of the Buhari administration call it, a bribery program to buy critical votes ahead of the 2019 presidential election? And 3 years since its creation, in terms of real deliverables, has this program achieved all that the Buhari administration hoped that it would? Well, hello and welcome to the program. I'm Angela Ajetomobi. Well, she is the special advisor to Nigeria's President Buhari on the National Social Investment Program. Maryam Uwais joins me today on the program. Well, thank you, Mrs. Uwais, for coming on the program with me today. In 2017, the federal government identified macroeconomic stability as key within the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, as ERGP. But, and this was very important, Nigeria would need to make changes to social policies focusing on such sectors as health, employment, education, agriculture, micro, small and medium enterprises, etc. Above all, investment in social protection was needed to secure recovery, growth, and gains. So, has Nigeria never had any social investment program in the past? Was there no discussion on such policies since 2004?
Well, thank you for inviting me. You know, this is an opportunity for us to engage on what we've been doing. We have had several attempts, you know, for the past, 10 years before then, a policy had been in the making, but it was not passed until this administration came in, a social protection policy. That said, we had some very good initiatives, but each one of them had weaknesses, as everything. I'm sure when they go through ours in the future, they will identify. The important thing is to identify where the weaknesses are and to improve on them. So one of the things that was realized was that government tended to put offices at state level where the implementation happens. And that caused tensions between the federal officers and the state officers. And so that put paid to monitoring, you know, to like reporting, because tensions now created a lot of bad blood and everybody now started working in silos. So we came in with, okay, this is one lesson we've learned. We're going to get the states to drive the processes by themselves. We will just create a lean team, provide the standards, the criteria for engagement. Because as you said, a lot of these spheres of empowerment are actually at state level. And the citizens live there anyway. So unless we build capacity within the states to actually do what they're meant to be doing, enable them or facilitate, then we would continue to see progress in fits and starts, and the disparities between the rich and the poor would grow wider. Another thing we noticed was the targeting. A lot of the people that were being paid cash transfers were selected on a rather random basis. There was no methodology, and so there couldn't be a concerted effort on addressing the poorest, So we looked around. I actually traveled to 2 or 3 countries to see where they had made a dent on poverty in a relatively short space of time, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. Because when poverty has been endemic and has been growing over the years, then you need to work on how you can address it in the fastest way. You need a concerted effort, and you need to understand how it's done, especially in countries that have similar backgrounds with yours. And we all saw that it was about having a registry, a credible registry, which would have been a problem in Nigeria because we don't have IDs for majority of our citizens. So let's also see how we can address identification. Let's see how we can get people who have never before been registered on any platform, even at birth. How do we bring them in? So it's also social inclusion and financial inclusion. So let's try and work around those parameters. There was a lot of research. We engaged with the MBS, we engaged with NISA to see how we can do this work better, and data of households rather than individuals, so that we can select, depends on programming, the aged. We know who everybody, because we've desegregated the data according to age, or if it's widows, or if it's physically challenged. Let us know how we can draw out that data and address those that live in poor households. Not every widow is poor, so it's only poor households that we're looking at. And beyond that, we started looking at other issues that impact on poverty, like schools, where are the schools located? So for every community we go into for data, we also collate information on the nearest primary school, nearest secondary school, payment service provider, healthcare center, access roads, things like connectivity, power. All of those issues are not within our mandate, but we need to know them, so we share with the governors and with the NCC and with the REA, Rural Electrification Agency, so they understand how to be more strategic about infrastructure they're putting in place. Truth is, infrastructure is very important, but infrastructure does not necessarily address poverty. You can put a school in front of the house of a poor household, but the children will never go to school. It's not about the availability, because those children also go to the farm to support the parent. They go hawking to bring in funds for the family. By putting them in that school, you're depriving the household of income that would have come in. So you need to understand the nuances, what happens in those households, before they can release those children and enable them go to those schools. This category of the poor in Nigeria have never before had such a focus in that sense. The mechanisms we've drawn up for selecting households that are poor actually enable the community themselves to identify the people that are poor. And then we use devices, technology also overcomes subjectivity. And it has a PMT, a proxy means test formula, that automatically ranks those from on the fields entered, because we visit each household identified, and then it automatically ranks them from the poorest to the least poor. We do that because even at community level, you have elite capture. There are people that have loud voices and say, yes, I am also within those parameters. I also belong on the NSR, the National Social Register. So once we go to your house and we see you have a motorbike, and yet the majority of people in that household have put in as their assets torchlights, kettles, radios, then you know you're not going to start paying that 5,000 monthly to the person with a motorbike. You're going to start with the people who have radios. You understand? So it's just trying to be systematic, to have a methodology in place that is more credible, that will enable us actually target the abject poor before we begin to work on the poor.
So what exactly is the National Social Investment Program? What are the key components?
Well, we have several objectives, right? So we're doing the cash transfer, which is we're mining them from the National Social Register. We're trying to reduce unemployment and stimulate productivity, engaging the youth who have no jobs to actually get their hands dirty in spheres where they can get some. I mean, they'd be excited, they learn over a period of 2 years, so we pay them 30,000. This is the Empower graduate. We have the NBuild, and they are non-graduates, but they also get trained for 3 months in skill centers around the states that we have actually identified, and we buy toolboxes for each NBuild graduate. So they get trained for 3 months, and then we signed MOUs with the Corbon, the Council of Registered Builders, and the NADDC, the National Automotive Design Council, Development and Design Council. So we have them now interning, getting their members to take these people who have been trained. And interestingly, the non-graduate, many of them have graduates because they say the kind of practical experience they get in the 3-month training session is not something they ever got in universities. So those people are out there. We have 500,000 graduates working in agriculture, health, and teaching in primary schools and some secondary schools. They each have a device that we've given them, a tablet. It's an asset financing thing, so they applied and they're paying from the 30,000 that they have a certain stipend every month, so that at the end of 2 years it becomes theirs. Yes. So it's about having the modules that are relevant to the vocations in them, but it's also about having civic information, entrepreneurship, how to take ownership of their lives. We have a small loan facility. Those funds, though, are managed by BOI.
Of industry.
Yes, the Bank of Industry. We give them lump sums, and they make sure that the monies get to the target audience, and they recover the money. As I said from the beginning, we were determined to keep a very lean team at federal level. So BOI has the wherewithal to recover loans. We don't. So they have the agents out there. And so we're doing market money, trader money, farmer money under that. And they give us reports every quarter, based upon which we now release more funds to them. And then we have the school feeding program. And we're feeding over 9 million children now in almost 50,000 schools. And every day we increase.
Are all the states on board with this?
No, not yet. Program? The school feeding and the cash transfers are the slowest, basically because for the other two, people apply online for the market money and the... So we don't need any infrastructure at state level. You apply because our instructions were create a level playing field. We don't want one person to say, I had to engage, I had to go through somebody. We had to depart from what has happened in the past. That's another thing. You understand? That's another thing we learned. So we created a platform where people could lie on their beds and apply on their phones. But for the school feeding program, we need the state structure. We cannot go into any primary school and begin feeding unless the chairman or chairperson of SUBEB shares the details of the schools, the numbers of children. We need the commissioner for agriculture because we need the food that is accessible and affordable in that state. So we need to sit down with him. We need the commissioner for health because we're talking about nutrition here for these children. And we're trying to get food that is commensurate to the age of the children that we're targeting. This is classes 1 to 3. So we need the school-based management committees. We need the PTAs. All of those structures are at state level. So until the state coordinates all of that, we have a stakeholder meeting. We get the state to give us the details of the foods that are available. And then we go in with a team from Federal Ministry of Health, led by a professor in IITA. They sit down and work out the menu. So every state has a different menu. And then we also ask the state. They know where the schools are. We don't from federal. So you need to select women who are known cooks or are trusted by that community. So it could be the mothers of the children, or it could be women. Just have an open and transparent process for selecting women who live near the schools. Because we don't have money for transportation, we have money only for feeding. And so they do that, and then you need to screen them medically in a government institution, and then we train them on financial skills, on nutrition, how to preserve nutrients when cooking, hygiene, even allergies. And then the state onboards them with new accounts. on banks that are within the vicinities, or agents that can go there, the banks that are willing to come on board. Every woman needs to open a new account, because some of these women may have old bank accounts, but they may have taken loans. So we don't want our money goes. No, we don't want it to disappearing. So open new accounts for these women. Once this information comes to us with their BVN, the names, we send it to NIBS. We work very closely with NIBS. NIBS has been a pillar of support, the interbank payment system. They host the BVN register. So we send all the data to NIBS, and NIBS authenticates the identities of these women. Yes, the BVN matches the account number, matches the name. Once we have at least 70% of those women with their authenticated names, we now begin to pay. And of course, the menu is shared with them beforehand by the state. So you see, it's a process. And for some states, we've had series of delays in terms of when to hold the stakeholder meetings, when they can onboard the data. There's a state, for instance, Lagos State, we've been waiting for them to give us the data. It hasn't happened yet. So when that doesn't happen, I speak to the governor, I get the VP to speak to the governor, we just go back and forth. For some, it's not a priority, obviously. For some, it is a priority, but they put more male cooks. And I say, no, let's have more women cooking. You understand? So we've had those. And even for the cash transfer, it's the same thing. Well, right now we're in 26 states, for the school feeding. But I know 2 or 3 states are ready now. My only challenge is we have how many days till the end of term. So even though they may come on, it's just for 10 days or so. So it's really in January that we'll see an increase in the numbers of states. It's in January that I really expect that we'll have at least 4 more states or 6 more states, the way it's looking, that will come onto the program. But for the cash transfer, too, as I mentioned to you, we train, we get people to go in and enumerate, we have community-based targeting, we visit the households. All of that takes time. But one thing I'm confident about is once we have these registers in place, things will go so fast. It's just important that we get it right. So we're enumerating in 34 states now, even though the NSR has information only on 24 states. So when they upload the information, we verify, we clean up, we send back to the state where there are mistakes, go back and forth until we're ready to share the information of those below the PMT. Yes. With the cash transfer office, because that's the only thing that's the data they are interested in.
Join us again after the break. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, it's 60 Minutes with me, Angela Jetumobi. On my hot seat today, Maryam Uwais is a special advisor to Nigeria's President Buhari on the National Social Investment Program. Now, let's talk about partnering with the states and local government areas. That must have its challenges, especially in states governed by political parties that are different from the federal ruling party. Would that be correct?
Well, there are some states that we have had challenges with, but not necessarily because they are of different parties, We've had challenges with maybe last mile payments because a lot of our women don't own phones. You can't own a phone where there's no power because you can't charge them, connectivities. Those challenges we're trying to address through several meetings with banks, with the CBN, with the agents, EFINA, and they've really been helping to see how we can address that. But to talk of ownership by the states, it took time for some of the states to accept what we're doing. And it is not necessarily based on what party, because we made it very clear from the very beginning that the leadership had told us, go for poor people, irrespective of party affiliation. That was very clear. When we started the cash transfer, there was already data that had been collated from 8 states that had entered a direct agreement with the World Bank on how to collate data in a credible and authentic manner. So for instance, Ekiti State had data from that time, and you know how Fayoshe was with this government, you understand. But we took that data in and we cleaned it up. We went in, validated that those people were actually poor, and then we started paying them. So that for me, I had no hesitation in my mind, you know. And it took a lot of, I had several presentations with the governors to explain, we need you to nominate one person from your state that I can liaise with, because I'm going to be intervening in areas that are education, agriculture, health. You know, I won't be able to call different people. We need somebody to coordinate, just like I coordinate at federal level. Give me one person that will be your focal person. Now, it did not matter which party. And that person became the coordinator of what happens in our programs in the states. So each of the states has its own program lead on Empower, program lead, and they do the implementation. But they have a focal person who is like the political appointee, right? And we work with that person, and they have come to understand, and they are the nearest people to the governor, because we ask, give us your own person. And the VP asked them to please move that office into the government office. So if there are any bottlenecks that need to be resolved, if there are any challenges with any of the ministries, that person should be able to resolve those bottlenecks very fast. And we have regular meetings with the focal persons. They have really supported us to work in the states. So I should say that the fastest places we've worked in is where we've had focal persons that are really proactive. You understand? So now we have a lot of good stories coming out, and the focal persons understand. They actually alert us in states where we don't have the same political party, or they're trying to politicize our programs, and we quickly take it up. You understand? And then, of course, we've had a very close collaboration with the DSS too. And the DSS also give us information from every month, reports of what is happening. They don't arrest anybody on our behalf. They just give us reports from the field. So they can report to us about what a focal person is doing. So like a check. Recently I was in Benue, you know, just to try and get things right, because there were reports that there was somebody there, one of the state officials, who was like trying to harass. And I called one of the women, we have all their numbers, the cooks, and she confirmed. So I took a trip, and the governor was so appreciative. You know, he's changed the person. And, you know, things have really improved because they understand it's about human capacity. And these people are their constituents. They're their people. When they realize that every month we pay like 100 minimum, 200 million into the accounts of these, they understand that the economy is growing. The rural economy is being impacted. You know, the only thing is money doesn't go through them. It goes directly to the accounts of these women. You understand? So it's really been very interesting.
That brings me to the next point. One of the challenges that will be associated with a program such as this. I've seen many photographs online talking about the school feeding program. You know, we see where they put the food in a nylon bag or on a piece of paper. We see sometimes they don't give the children a full egg. You know, so I wondered if you had, you know, people who go in like detectives and, you know, to check and make sure that the nutrition is ace. You know.
The times I've really been so frustrated is when you see people that are relatively affluent trying to make money from these poor women. It has happened in a few instances. I won't deny it, but some of those videos are not true. I saw one last weekend, purportedly from Niger State. We were given Indomie and something. There's no Indomie on the Niger State menu. So I knew for one that that was not true, right? They said the state had spent 2 billion. The state doesn't spend money on paying these cooks. Yeah, we pay them from Abuja, and there's no state that we paid 2 billion in 10 days. You understand? So we knew that that was electoral. It was fake news, which surprises me. I guess I'm a bit naive, you know. Surely when something is addressing a need, we should be looking at how to improve rather than destroy. You understand? Yes. I don't understand some of these politicians. Yes. I don't understand it, because these children are benefiting, and they're children who would never have eaten a balanced meal. You find children hiding pieces of meat and chicken in their pockets because they want to take to their siblings at home. You understand? So surely this should touch the heart of those who want to destroy it. Now, that said, it is true that in Kano, which is where I'm from, yes, and in Adamawa, we saw videos and we investigated, and we found that they were being fed on nylon and pieces of paper. Yes. When we started, we did not think that it would be necessary to provide utensils and cutlery. Right?
Plastic bowls.
Yes. A lot of the states, Borno, Ogun, they've given them free, right? We've encouraged states to encourage the children to bring in their plates. Some states have organized loans, even from Jeep, for these women. But some states just, apparently, they didn't take any steps to address that. So because of what we saw, it's now in our 2018 budget that we should actually supply utensils and cutlery. My focus was just feed nutritious meals. And we're learning. As I keep saying, this is a process we've started, and we're willing to learn and to take on some of these issues. It is a pity that some of these state governors do not see that it's necessary to support the program at this stage. But even if not, it is not good for a child to be eating out of. I visited. Some of the parents were saying, but we eat with our fingers at home. You understand? Yeah. So for them, it wasn't such a big deal. But then it's a good thing to start teaching children how to use cutlery even at that level. So we might as well introduce it. We're learning, and we encourage, because of the vast terrain that is Nigeria, there is no way, even now, that we will know where every single school is and what they're doing. So we encourage the people to tell us what's going on. We've got civil society now. ActionAid helped us to select civil society to monitor, and they coordinate all of that. We have independent monitors in every local government. They also support us. We have phone numbers where people can call in to say, this is what is happening in this school. People offer to say, can we help? I've seen very interesting structures. I just came back from Ondo last week. The state government actually has harnessed those retired civil servants that are back in the local governments, just walk into the schools to check on the food and come back to us, because it's our children.
Yes, well, people are worried that the cooks, are they shortchanging these children? If there is a menu, for instance, that says, the chicken must be a certain size.
Yes.
How are we sure that they're not sharing that chicken for one child between 4 children?
I feel you, and I know what you're saying, and it's something that has kept me awake. But these women are being paid directly. What is highlighted in the news is the few instances.
Negative.
Yes, but there are many places where these children are actually eating well, and our effort now is to push out those stories also. So it's not a negative story. It's actually a positive story. And if you can select 1 or 2, I'm happy to address them. Let me know. Even yesterday, some people came to me and said in a particular state, the headmaster was taking, because eggs are supplied to the school, taking 2 crates home. So some of the children were shortchanged. Now, living in a community where there's poverty, you understand? So I said, get me the name of that school, and we're going to name and shame. He has to understand that the children in that school need the eggs more than he does. Yes. Or he should put his children in the same school, if it's that he's taking it to their parents, to his children. You understand? So you can't really have control over what happens in every school. We've insulated the process of payment, so the women get the money directly. In some cases, like in Kaduna, they did a process of selection for aggregators for eggs. Yes. And this woman won. I had never seen her before. But she had a poultry that had 20 crates every week. Now she has a poultry that has over 300 crates. And she's also got on her database 500 poultry farmers. She knows where they live in the local governments. As they supply, she pays them. She has their account numbers. You understand? She is the main aggregator. So she supplies, or she has her people, the poultry. She's, I think, deputy president of their poultry association. Yes. So it's happened also in Ondo, I think, and Ogun. They have the poultry association. So long as what our women will get is cheaper through the aggregation, we agree to pay. The governor writes us and says, oh, such and such a person is aggregating beef. Yes. It's cheaper for us, for them. So you take care of the distribution. Make sure it gets to them. In Kano, there's a yogurt factory on Fridays. They have put up their own structures, very impressive, to make sure that the yogurt gets to the school before it's before it goes bad. Yes, and so they make it the day before, and they have signed with the road transport workers some agreement, and they go out. So you see, the road transport workers are gaining the yogurt, dairy farming, cattle. Cattle now, with the 26 states, we need 594 cows every week for beef. We have 138,000 chicken per week. We need 6.8 million eggs per week. Now, these eggs get supplied, but the question is, in some of the schools, and not many, yes, I should emphasize, some of the teachers want to take advantage and carry. Yes, so when it comes to, so it's to address those. Please report to us. Get the public to tell us what's happening, and we will deal with the situation.
Join us again after the break. And welcome back to my concluding moments now with Maryam Uwais, the Special Advisor to Nigeria's President Buhari on the National Social Investment Program. Let's talk about the market money, trader money, and farmers' money. We've seen the Vice President, Professor Osinbajo, going around the markets, distributing these monies, and people very happy. But, it's turning into a political argument now that it's a way to buy votes through the back door. Do people have to be a member of the APC to benefit from these monies?
Definitely not. I don't think that in all his trips you have seen him asking anybody, even for PVC. PVC, in fact, different from APC. Yes. PVC is like, do you pay your tax?
Yes.
You understand, have you registered? But what we have done with JEEP, we began in 2016. We've been giving loans to people, cooperatives, you understand. What happens now with the trader money? We realized that there was, in doing JEEP,
yes,
there is a category of people who don't even apply, who can't go onto the internet because it's on the internet. And we have to review our processes and address, as I mentioned about the utensils now. We realize that there's some people who may have phones, but they have no access to finance. I go out into the field regularly. They say to us, how can we engage? How can we get loans? They don't have collaterals, they don't know how to pay interest, they just don't know where to go. Unless they have a relation or a friend that can help them, they can never improve their businesses. And this is a problem with Nigeria. As I said, infrastructure is good. That's what everybody has been clamoring for. But this category of people who are Nigerians as much as you and I are, have been completely ignored. And this is why the chasm has grown deeper and deeper, wider and wider, the differentials between us and them. And so I listen to people and I just shake my head when they say, first and foremost, what is 10,000 naira? I have seen where families survive on 3,500 naira and still can save after 2 years to buy a goat. You understand? 10,000 naira for a person whose entire inventory is not up to 5,000 naira is a lot of money. And if it meant nothing, you wouldn't see such joy when the vice president is actually there. Now, what the process is enumerators go into the markets. We identify the markets beforehand, right? The markets where we have a lot of people. And then the enumerators go, not even BOI. They go in and they ask the people one by one after the other, are you interested in a loan? Do you have a phone? Because they get the alerts on the phone.
It's not cash.
No, they give them cash if they're interested, but there's an agent who now converts it to cash.
Right.
But they must have a phone to apply. So they help them apply, and not one agent asks for. In fact, the agents are not party agents. They're not political party agents, they are banking agents. And because we're not trying to get them to open accounts yet, we're trying to get them to understand that this can grow your business. If they pay back within 6 months, they can apply for 15,000 naira, but at that point, you need to open an account. So the banks are very happy to get the agents out there that they work with, because it's
bringing in the unbanked as well.
Yes, that's it. It's addressing financial inclusion. So, I mean, it's clearly something that is popular, which is why the opposition is hitting at it. You understand? But I really wonder, do we now stop supporting the poor because politics has come in? Of course we can't stop. People that need. And even though 10,000 seems paltry to you, it's a lot to them. If government makes promises, it has to fulfill them. It's going to try to fulfill them so long as we have the money to do it. We're going to continue keep trying, because I cannot be distracted by allegations that I know are not valid. We began this program. Nobody asks for a party. All we do is, do you need? And it's women that sell pomo, women that roast corn, people that sell water, people that, those are the people that we've been, and they're so happy. I mean, what is the advantage? We think Nigeria, ERGP, is finally addressing that category. We think we need to provide power, but these people many of them have never had consistent power anyway. So they've made their lives, they've been trying to do their businesses irrespective. So how do you grow that from the 5,000 komo to 7,000 komo? How do you enable them or facilitate their businesses so that they can grow? So I expect that more of it will come. Every morning I wake up, I say a prayer. Dear God, what is going to happen today? Because it's election time.
The Empower, for viewers watching us now,
yes.
Is it too late for people to still get onto that Empower program? What is it really all about?
We opened the portal for the first time in 2016. We opened it for 3 months. We had, for the graduate category, 350,000 applications, out of which we selected 200,000. I think people were skeptical. We opened again in 2017. We opened only for 6 weeks. We had 2.5 million applications, and we only needed 300,000 because government made a promise of 500,000.
Yes.
Right? So next year.
That's 2019.
Yes, God willing, we will open the platform again, but based on the amount of money that is appropriated for our programs. Because you are aware that some of the money has been wired, so we have to be very careful with our spending. That money is not available anymore. Some of it has been taken out by the National Assembly for other projects, not for INEC, you understand. So we don't want to make promises that we can't fulfill. It's not a cheap project. Empower is the most expensive because we pay 30,000 to each person. We give them a device. Even for the 200,000, we used to spend 6 billion every month.
Is that 30,000 alone?
No.
If it's not, how long do you pay them?
For 2 years. So we pay them for 2 years. In those 2 years, we expect that if you selected agriculture, yes, you'd have stabilized, and if it's agriculture, you'll determine whether you want to be a farmer, harvest, export, preservation, whatever it is you like. And now the first set is coming to an end. We've devised what we call Empower Enhanced. So we're talking to different agencies to see how they can take them on. Some of the, like Kaduna State, like Plateau, like Borno, have told us their teachers, majority of their teachers, have done so well. They've really done a lot of work in the schools because, a lot of our teachers may not be that qualified. We have the teaching pedagogy in the device anyway, but a lot of our teachers already in the schools. You know what happened in Kaduna State, you know. So they have proved really revolutionary in the way they've arranged case management and all of that. So they're keeping them. Some of them NERSAL, something said they're on the right risk for agriculture anyway. Yes. They're taking them on. So we'll pay them for a period of time, and hopefully after conducting psychometric tests online, we'll be able to know whether they're actually employee in character, employer in character, and also whether they can be entrepreneurs. So we can actually direct them to the appropriate slots that are available and provide incentives even for the states to take some of them on. We can't compel the states, of course, to employ them. Each state knows what its budget is like and all of that, but we can incentivize them to do so.
And what do you say to those people who think that the figures are exaggerated? For instance, talking about the number of cows that you're killing, the number of eggs, over 6 million. Some people say, it's an avenue for creative accounting and, corruption as well.
What we have is what the state shared with us, right? So when we started, we didn't have time to do head count of children and all of that. So we went to the state SUBEBs. How many children do you have? Based on that is what we calculate the eggs. And if an egg a week is on the menu, that's how we know, right? So the same thing with beef. We have beef aggregators. We know how many each, like in Bauchi, they have a meat factory that they revived even because of the school feeding program. They tell us how many they slaughter every week for their program. The same thing in Ogun, the same thing. So what we have done, because we do understand that there may be challenges in numbers of pupils, not cooks. Right. Because cooks, we know. Cooks are assigned anything between 70 and 150 children, because the only way they can make profit on 70 naira a meal is if they have enough bulk numbers. Yes. And you see, those cooks are trained, we know them, we have their account numbers, so we are sure of the number of cooks. Those are the numbers we've hosted on our website. Now for the pupils, because even UBEC has a challenge with the number of pupils, we can only share what the states have given us. We've asked NBS Statistics, to go in, and they're now, as we speak, they're in states counting the children for us, so that they give us the information. Then we'll have the confidence to post the numbers of pupils. But as for the number of cows, the number of cooks, the number of eggs, all of that is authentic. It has to be authentic because we pay based on the number of children. Whether the number of children get those eggs is a different issue.
Do the women who cook, do they pay any bribes, any incentives to
They're not meant to
be chosen?
They're not meant to at all. And this is why we're going to have a town hall meeting to go around, because we have got reports in about 4 places where women are threatened that they'll be removed. Yes, that you will be removed from the program. They don't know that they can't be removed because we have the master list. We pay them based on the BVN, the account number. So no state official can remove them. But they don't know, and they're so grateful to be on the program that they are ready to part with 1,000 naira, 2,000 naira to remain on the program. So we need to do a little more on publicity to assure them. Same thing with trader money. I've seen 2 people that we've arrested, one in Kaduna, one in Kano, one of the local governments. Young people just go out there and say, we represent trader money. And if you want to be part of this, I'll give you a SIM card, buy it for 2,000 naira. And they've been taken to 2,000 naira from these poor women just to put them on a so-called program. They just pick up on these issues, and so we called our independent monitors, they confirmed, we had them arrested. So the more we get of these reports, because we are not able to have a tab on everything everywhere, the better for us and the better for our children. It's not about this government. It's about the poor. It's about our communities. So the school feeding is boosting the nutrition of these children. It's having them enrolled. It's empowering the woman, and it's boosting productivity for the smallholder farmer. He's assured of a sustainable income. So it's about them. But this is what the politicians miss. So it's a child being fed, the mother being the cook and the father being the farmer, and it's a wholesome product for the community. It's the same thing. Empire is about the youth being taken off the street, setting up their own businesses, employing other people. Same thing for trader money. It's about boosting the incomes of those who had never before had any access to credit. You understand? It's not about the VP. It's not about the president. It's about those people, how their lives are being transformed.
Something I recall in Kaduna State when Governor El Rufai said the numbers of children who were registering in schools had increased. But he found that the minute they all finished their meal, they left school and went home. And most of them said, oh, they weren't giving water. What is the arrangement as far as water is concerned?
Yeah. So we're working very hard now with WFP, other providers, to see how we can ensure that we have potable water. But we've been encouraging the schools to actually give the children clean water. You understand? To now go into water is maybe for my successor. I've seen enough. But it is true that in some schools, the children, in fact, you have children wandering in just to eat. And you understand?
Back out.
Yeah, but it's creating a conducive environment. Many of them remain because they're curious. At that age, you want to know what's happening. Yes. So many of them remain. So even if it's a beginning of luring them into the four walls of a classroom, I think it's a start. Yes. So I'm not too bothered about the fact that some of them leave, because I listen more to how happy these children are. And the teachers tell us the learning outcomes are improving. The children are brighter, they're more eager to be in school. So, yes, there'll be the negligible few that leave, but eventually, I think they'll stay longer.
They will all settle in.
Yes.
And the partnerships with the ministries, departments, and agencies at federal and state levels. What does the government hope to achieve with these partnerships? Is it not burdensome? Isn't it like adding more work to the work they already have?
No. We're actually leveraging on the capacity that exists, right? So we don't have to create staff, we don't have to post staff to do advocacy at community level, because we've signed an MOU with NOA, and they have community officers, what they call COMOs. So they support us with verification. The NPAR, once they're selected online, we send the list to NIBS. Again, NIBS verifies and authenticates their identities. Then we send the list back to the states to say physically verify that they're unemployed, that they have the qualifications, that they're between the ages of 18 and 35, and then deploy them, because we don't know the schools, we don't know the needs, we don't know the teacher-student ratio.
Yes.
Right? Yes. So you know best. So NOA has been very helpful. They've given us their offices, they've helped us. When in the beginning we started paying women cash, because the community identifies them, the youth in 2 places stood around and said, we identified you, pay a levy.
Yes.
I went to the Minister of Interior, he spoke to the Civil Defense. They have people at state level and community level. They escort the agents now on payday, and they protect the women. So we don't need to pay, it's being cost effective for anybody from Abuja to go to those communities to pay. And beyond this, we're preparing a roadmap for our programs so that we insulate it and we protect the data we're gathering, that's like a gold mine, and also see how we can sustain this effort, right? So we're looking at where are the strengths, We don't need to create a huge research entity in our programs. We've been talking to NISA. Can we work with you? So we have a points person within our coordinating team. Any information we pass on to you, you can measure, you can evaluate, you can issue reports. Budget and planning has always done donor coordination. Yes. So we don't need to create a donor coordination. It's to avoid the duplicity in roles. So it's really been helpful to work with those who actually have the expertise, who've always been there. We don't want to disrupt anybody or threaten anybody's existence. Yes. We have to work with you and collaborate and create a synergy. Working with the MDAs, it's tapping on expertise that exists, and they're very happy to work with us, and it's also reducing our costs. If the DSS today offers to monitor, as they have been doing, we don't need to send security, create from Abuja to go there, because they already have the people there. Yes. So all they did was harness their people. We went and trained them, explained the processes to them, and they give us reports every month. You understand? So it's working.
I've listened to you a few times, and some of the challenges that you've always talked about, racketeering, taking advantage of the poor women, logistics, state officials acting as gate men on payment days, screening and training of cooks and monitoring and evaluation of the food giving, massive fraud with evidence that some officials siphoned money to illegal bank accounts. Why will the program...
You know, I need to correct this because I never said massive fraud.
Right.
You understand? And I had to come out with a statement. I think some very creative journalists listened to me and added some verbs. You know, yes, they're in 2 states. And when you think that we're in 26 states, I think that is not massive.
It's not.
Right? So in those states, we found the state officials were like harassing the women, demanding for appreciation tokens, you know. Yeah. And so they opened accounts and had monies diverted from the cook's accounts using their thumb into that account. As soon as we found out, I went to the governors, demanded that they be removed. And luckily, when the governors realized, after all, the women are their constituents too, they actually replaced them. And all of that information is with the EFCC, and the EFCC has begun investigations. You understand? So yes, those were the issues with those 2 state officials. But a lot of these, some of the challenges are really not human. We can't wait until power is provided everywhere in the country before we do certain things. We can't wait until banks roll out in every community before we open accounts for people. So we're working with the CBN now to see how do we, there's a SANEF, a shared network initiative that's being provided by the banks. They're trying to provide government savings accounts for poor people. We've latched onto that, and we're working with them to see what's the KYC, the minimal KYC. We don't want phone numbers because a lot of those women don't have phones. Yes. So can we do the BVN? Okay, let's do the BVN. Can our agents capture the BVN of our cash transfer beneficiaries? Because they are the only ones that don't have BVN when we pay. We have the account numbers of the agents that we pay them. We put in a back-end technology that enables us see when people come to collect money. And those agents go to the locations because cash transfer beneficiaries are the poor and the vulnerable. Many of them are old, unable to travel long distances. And you can't pay somebody 5,000 and say you have to travel to go and collect it because you'll be spending money out of it. So we had to recruit agents in public procurement process. Yes. And they now go to those locations and we pay them. Per beneficiary, we pay them 200 naira that they pay at location. So our technology is back end with the agent. Before they go with paper. Yes. So the agent signs off, the beneficiary signs off, and the community facilitator. We have a community facilitator I didn't mention. In every ward, there's somebody that goes to visit our beneficiaries weekly.
In every ward?
In every ward that we're paying. We have trained local government staff that visit our beneficiaries in every ward every week. And they encourage them to form savings groups. They monitor what they do. They encourage them to financial skills, nutrition, sanitation, hygiene, you know. So this is why some of them say, now I can bath with soda because they used to use water before. You understand? I can share so many testimonies. It's true that it's been a battle. There are a lot of issues, you know. People want maybe people they know selected, you know. But it's also so fulfilling to see the impact you're making on people who don't know anybody, who just happen to be where they are by virtue of circumstance.
And that's an important point to harp on, that You don't need to know anybody to benefit from the social investment program. You don't need to be connected.
No. That was one of the critical things that the Vice President told us. Just maintain that. So it hasn't been easy because, of course, the norm has been people that maybe belong to the same party.
Connections.
Yes, the other day I appeared before one of the state, I think it was channels in the morning, and I insisted that nobody can say that they came to me to say this is my list and I accepted it. In fact, at some point, they were saying to me, staff, just say you'll accept it, but don't do it. Yes. But I'm the kind of person that says it's not possible. You understand? As soon as I came, I had 2 texts from people who are from our party, APC, said, you should have mentioned my name because I remember the battle I had with you to try and get my people on board. And you said no. I'm ready for you to mention my name. You understand? But I just didn't want to. So it's interesting that in the past, maybe people from my party have been saying it's us, and now PDP is saying it's people from APC, and they have no evidence whatsoever. I don't know who is printing those forms, just like I don't know who is collecting SIM cards or who is, I have no control over that. If you want to print a form and write, I stand with Buhari, or you could be opposition, and print I stand with Buhari just to make to make it look bad. I really don't know where these stories are coming from. All I know is that I will not be distracted. So whatever they say, they can say. I will just continue to do the work that the leadership has given me to do.
Well, thank you very much, Mrs. Uwais, for having us in your office in the Federal Capital Territory here.
And thank you so much. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, that's it for this week. I'm Angela Ajetumobi. Thank you for watching.